So recently, Bill Goldberg, oh, you Bret Hart fans should love that I'm referred to him by his full name, Bill Goldberg. Yeah, Bill Goldberg had his supposed alleged retirement match. Yee-haw, right? That was news to me. I thought he had already retired. I thought he was done. For all intents and purposes, he was kind of washed and done at this point, but I guess you got to have one more match. That's just what you do in professional wrestling, right? But, you know, it is what it is, and he's retired until he works his next match or the Saudis back up the Brinks truck with enough money. Who the fuck knows? But it leaves me thinking and wondering about, like, what is Bill Goldberg's legacy when it comes to professional wrestling? And, you know, as somebody that grew up and watched wrestling at the time that Bill Goldberg was at the height of his power, if you will, at the height of his appeal, height of his box office attraction, I've always thought that Goldberg gets a bit of a bad rap, frankly. Now, I know what some of you are going to say, since I'm an older school fan. Oh, he loves them roided up fucking guys that can't move or work for shit. Fuck you. Fuck you. All these fucking spot monkeys you guys have, let me know when they provide any real unique entertainment value, will you? But all joking aside, like, I've always thought Goldberg gets a bad rap. And, you know, I've always wondered why that is. In some ways, he's like the 90s version, the late 90s, early 2000s version of late 80s, early 90s Ultimate Warrior, but not as much of a jackass and a piece of crap as Jim Hellway was in that era, right? You know, certainly there's times where you've heard like Goldberg could be a little difficult to deal with, but some of that was he a bit naive? Did he have bad people like Kevin Nash and others in his ear and da-da-da-da-da? Didn't necessarily understand wrestling as much, but here's what can't be denied. No matter how much other people have tried to sit there and take this away from him over the years, was in the late 90s, Goldberg was a massive fucking star. Period. Anybody that's trying to diminish that or minimize that is just fucking delulu. For those old folks, that means delusional, apparently, in like Gen Z and Gen Alpha terms, whatever. But you're delulu because he fucking was. He was a monster draw. Don't ever get this shit twisted. Like, there was a reason that they put over 40,000 people in the Georgia Dome the night that he took on Hogan to win the WCW World title after only a few days of promotion ahead of time. And you're going to say, well, it's probably because they gave away 20,000 tickets. That's not the point. I don't need your facts. Let me have my reality, damn it. But the reality is that with only a couple days promotion, over 40,000 people went to the Georgia Dome to watch fucking Goldberg. And to sit there and say, well, they were always pumping in the Goldberg chants and they were doing this and doing all that bullshit. Like, fuck off. This guy was a star. He was a massive fucking star. And to pretend like he wasn't is revisionist bullshit history. Goldberg is incredibly memorable. He is more memorable than a lot of people's so-called favorite wrestlers or so-called all-time greats. To this day, we still talk about the undefeated streak and how well that was booked and how well that was presented. To this day, you've got fans like myself who are still pissed off with the way they ended the fucking streak and how that led to the finger poke of doom and all that other bullshit. To sit there and pretend, though, like Goldberg wasn't a breath of fresh air to WCW at the time, that he wasn't unique, that he didn't present something interesting and compelling for WCW and professional wrestling as a whole, is just complete and total bullshit. Well, he wasn't exactly the best talker on the mic. He wasn't a great worker. And who gives a fucking shit? Did he put an ass every 18 inches? Yes, he did. And I think some of this might come from the fact of when you go back to the Monday Night Wars and those that were much more WWF than WCW have always kind of looked at Goldberg and like, oh, he shaved his head and he had the goatee like us. He was trying to fucking rip him off, which is, again, so fucking stupid, right? But I get it, but it's dumb. And maybe some WWF fans, you'll always think about Goldberg and what a great parody character. But it speaks to the greatness of the original that the Goldberg character works so fucking well. But for all those people that are going to sit there, what is it? Like, is it because Bret Hart blames him for his fucking stroke because he gave him a concussion? All this shit that Bret Hart did over the fucking years. I know a lot of people look at Bret Hart like he's a fucking legend and he deserves respect. And he is a legend and he deserves respect. But he's a bitter old fucking man. And as much as fun as it is sometimes to see just how bitter he is towards Bill Goldberg or some of these other cats like Triple H and so forth, here's the fucking reality. Of all the shit that Bret Hart did throughout his wrestling career, for him to sit there and blame Bill Goldberg as the reason he got his fucking stroke is fucking reckless and stupid. Flat out. Flat out. Because that even happened a couple of years after that. Like, how ridiculous. Just, now maybe you could sit there and say, well, once he got to WWE in 2003, he kind of got exposed a little bit. And then the way he went out at WrestleMania 20 with Brock Lesnar left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. And sure, that 2003 run of Goldberg's in WWE wasn't exactly the best. But I think that was an example of they had him, and they felt like they needed to use him, and there was value there, but they didn't really know, Vince didn't really know what the fuck to do with him, which was a bit of a surprise. It just didn't work out so well, right? But, you know, I think as he came back into the fold, and what was that, like 2016, and now Goldberg squashing Brock Lesnar in like 90 seconds at Survivor Series, you're like, holy fucking shit. You could get it, you could sense it, and it was kind of like this short-term kind of revitalization and this rebuilding and rebranding of Goldberg to where he was a bit refreshing. And you could see he was kind of an authentic dude in a way. And you could see, you know, the badassery that used to be there and could be once again. Like, I can't imagine watching that run, especially with Brock Lesnar and the program that they had, and saying, like, Bill Goldberg sucks. No, he fucking doesn't. He's one of those guys, though, you have to know how to utilize him, and you've got to put him in the right positions, and you've got to feature and present him well, and accentuate his strengths and hide his negatives. But if you do that, you have a lot of guys in the history of the wrestling business that you've got to do that with, but if you do that and you do that well, they can really fucking shine. Now, it's so often the case with wrestlers, they don't necessarily know when to say when, they don't know when to hang it up, and instead of Bill Goldberg having one last run that could have worked, you got to a place where every match that he was having still kind of felt the same. It was very short, it was physical, and it was hard hitting, and that was a welcome change. But again, Department of Redundancy department kind of stuff, right? Like, it started to get old, started to get played out, and eventually when you get towards the end, you're like, okay, I've seen enough of this. But yeah, like, when you go back to the Monday Night Wars, to pretend like Goldberg wasn't a draw in terms of ratings or in terms of box office is just wild. And I realize you'll have a number of cats that'll sit there and try to diminish him or discredit him, and that's probably sour grapes and bitterness, or they wish that they could have done nearly what Bill Goldberg did in his relatively shorter time in professional wrestling. They fucking wish. And you could say, well, he certainly got a great opportunity early, but goddamn it, you know what? He made the fucking most of it. Life doesn't work the same for everybody, right? Different opportunities come to different people at different times. Some get them earlier, some get them more frequently, but by God, whenever the fuck you get them, you got to make the most of them, or if you don't, you got to kick down the door and make them sons of bitches happen. And a lot of the people I think over the years that have shitted on him, not necessarily like a Bret Hart, because he was a star in his own right, certainly, right? It wasn't a massive box office draw domestically, because if he fucking was, why was the WWF getting his ass kicked by WCW in 96 and 97 when Bret Hart was at the top of the fucking company? You know what I mean? Like, give me a fucking break here. But yeah, Goldberg was a big fucking star. Goldberg was a dude, man. And you saw this especially, I think, when he came back, you know, in the past 8-9 years, especially when it was fresh and it was new again. Like, it was really fucking awesome because you're like, this dude is different. He works differently, he presented differently, he feels differently, he acts differently, he walks differently, he talks differently. And that shit stands out. Unique is cool when it comes to professional wrestling almost always. But he certainly is going to go down as a huge star in our lifetimes, whether people want to give him the credit for that or not, whether they want to admit it or not. Is he on the Austin, Rock, Hogan kind of level? Absolutely not. Is he on the Taker, Mankind, Kurt Angle type of level? Certainly not. Is he on like the Psycho Sid, Lex Luger level? Perhaps, probably. And by God, by the way, as much as everybody might want to shit on that, that's not a bad fucking level to be on. It's not. Because when you think of Luger, he's got some big time memorable moments in his career. Psycho Sid, need I say any fucking more about that legend and icon? But you got to admit that Bill Goldberg has some moments, that's legendary moments at that certainly certainly rank up there on the list. Although one of them's got to be Sid going, Goldberg, why? Yeah, like I thought the ironic thing about Goldberg was sometimes you have characters that fit in a certain moment, in a certain period, in a certain time. But I thought it was a really interesting example of a guy you look at and you say, initially, like, this is Vince's type of guy. This is the type of guy that Vince would be all over and would know of how to have made a star. But it was actually Eric Bischoff that did a vastly superior job with him in so many different fucking ways. Like, we still talk about the Streak to this day. We still talk about that run to this day. And at a time in wrestling when you had the NWO, you had Sting was coming at Hogan, you had Rodzilla was starting to come around, like you had all this shit. Here comes fucking Goldberg, and it's like a whole entirely different thing. He shows up, he kicks ass for 2 or 3 minutes, and he fucking leaves. And it was fucking awesome, and I don't care what any revisionist motherfuckers want to say about it. Goldberg was cool, and he always will be fucking cool. And if you don't like that, you can stick it, brother. We need more Goldbergs, damn it. God knows the business could use something different.